Hello chess friends and welcome to your of Chess channel and welcome to a very special tournament that started a couple of days ago. Welcome to the Traxler Countergambit tournament that's played now between the top engines, and what is a little bit of a surprise, we have to say, the Lc0 is in the lead. I expected really the Stockfish engine to be better in this super event, but now Lc0 has a clear advantage in front of Stockfish 14. Lila is simply better and better in this very sharp opening, and in my opinion this Traxler Countergambit is really one of the sickest openings that you can choose. It's really one of the wildest opening that you see because tactics are possible all over the board. In my opinion, it's simply too brutal. I myself, I'm really not a big fan of it, but when it comes to tactical battles, if you want to study something, I think the Traxler Countergambit could be sort of a surprise element that you can use in order to maybe win games very easily and very effectively. But as I said, it's simply too sharp. Sometimes the tactics are so wild with tactical lines even in depth for 10-20 moves. So as I said, it's simply one of the sickest openings that you can choose in an early stage of the game. So let's check out now how Lc0 handled the Traxler Countergambit here from Black's perspective. Lc0 is in the lead, as I said, and Lc0 also won recently in Evans Gambit tournament, also in front of Stockfish 14. So as I said, when it comes to this romantic era openings, Lc0 seems to me that it's simply slightly better than Stockfish 14. I'm not sure what the reason about it, but as I said, Lila is simply better and won many super events in this sharp opening. So let's check out now one great game. Here Lila's opponent was another engine Schooner. This engine Schooner is maybe not one of the best and elite engines in this computer chess world, but it's still, I think, a respected opponent. But still, as I said, in this elite top engine battles against Stockfish and Lc0, most of the times White wins the game because White has a huge advantage in the beginning, and Black has to play really tactical brilliances in order to get out of this mess, in order to get out of this tactical possibility. So here Schooner opened with the move e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, and we have now the move knight to f6, which is the knight to knight defense. We have now the knight's attack with the move knight to g5. Most of the times you see this move d5, but now the last prearranged move by the organizer has to be now the move bishop to c5, and we have reached now the Traxler Countergambit position. So this whole tournament is played in this particular position. So if you want to really study maybe the Traxler Countergambit, I'll show you the link of this event in the description below, so maybe you can analyze also some sharp lines for yourself. Many great games have been played, so this was now the initial position for every game. From this point on, the engines had to calculate the position for themselves. So here this engine Schooner plays simply the normal move knight to f7. Here bishop to f2, which is now the main theory of the Traxler Countergambit. The problem is White cannot take. If you play knight takes f2, then you get king to f2, then you get knight to e4, and you have basically now two choices. King to f1 wouldn't be so good because then you get queen to h4, and then even if you try to cover, then you get this one, knight to g3. If you take, of course, with the pawn, will simply take out the rook. If you take now with the queen, then you get this one, queen takes c4, then you have to play again this one, and then after queen to f7, in my opinion, Black is much better because the king is still secured here on e8. Black still can castle in the position. Black can secure the king, and the materials about equal, but still, of course, Black is also this extra pawn. So as I said, this wouldn't be the best of continuation. Maybe after this move king to f2 and knight takes e4, maybe king to g1 could be a possibility, but again, I think with queen to h4, here queen to e2 would be a forced line, and now with knight to d4, queen to e3, maybe knight to c2, queen to e2, and again knight to d4, I think leads into perpetuals, and the game should probably end in a draw. So these are the tiny little things that you should take care of when you're playing the Traxler Countergambit from White's and from Black's perspective. So as I said, here taking the bishop on f2 is simply not an option here for White. So that's why king to f1. You see really wild stuff all over the board. The king is on a weird square, so the White's king cannot be secured anymore by castling. The problem is also now for Black here, the fork on the queen and the rook. So that's why here after move king to f1, we have queen to e7, knight takes h8. So here Schooner accepts simply the challenge, takes out the rook. We have now d5. The problem is now if you play bishop to d5, if you don't want to mess up your pawn structure here in the beginning, then it's already a game over here also for White. white, because then you get the stunner bishop to g4 and your queen gets trapped. You see how wild this opening can be. Bishop to g4, the queen doesn't have any more squares on the board, so the queen is trapped. So if you try here something like bishop to b5, again, maybe to keep the bishop here on this diagonal in order to have still the possibility to cover yourself with the move bishop to e2, I still think bishop to g4, then again bishop to e2, and then bishop takes e2, queen to e2, and now in the continuation of the game we can simply castle, I think, also take out the knight. And in my opinion, although black is down some material, but when this bishop gets back, when the knight is taken with this centralized pawns, with this naked king on f1 after queenside castling, then something like rook to f8, white's king would be in really serious trouble. So as I said, although down the exchange sort of, black I think has here a decent game. The engine gives here also minus 1.5 here position for black. So really wild stuff. So the king security is actually the most important thing in the continuation of the game, especially in the Traxler Countergambit. So after e takes d5, that was sort of a must move. We have seen now bishop to b5 and bishop takes d5 is simply not working here. We have e takes d5, here knight to d4. Now the knight comes very active into the game, and we have now again a new threat again to play the move bishop to g4. So here d6 played by this other engine Schooner. We have queen to d6. If we play c takes d6, then the problem is we can simply take king to f2 would be then a possibility. The problem is now you cannot really activate your pieces. You can maybe play one check, but again the king will simply move here to g1, and again after something like queen to f6, I still think we can cover everything with queen to e1, and the position is perfectly fine. Although you will probably in one particular moment lose your c2 pawn, but still the main issue is here that we want to simplify the game by trading off the queens, because the queen is the only then piece that can harm us. So that's why after the move d6, here in the continuation we have queen to d6, and now we have knight to f7. So maybe here the possibility was finally to play the move c3 to kick away this very annoying knight. If you play something like here king takes f2, then the problem is simply knight to g4 or bishop to g4. Again, with bishop to g4, the queen gets trapped. I think even if you move the queen somewhere, maybe to g1, then you get this one, knight to e4. So again, the pieces are dancing in front of white's king. So this is not a scenario that you should allow. Even if you try something like queen to e1 in order to prevent your opponent to jump on e4, then you get knight to c2. Again, the fork, you have maybe again a new square to move, but now with knight to e4, queen to c5, again white is simply tactical loss. So really 6-6 stuff. So as I said, here after move queen to d6, that was our analysis after potential king takes f2. So far this bishop cannot be taken because of this knight jump on e4, on g4, bishop to g4, queen to c5, and similar stuff. So as we said, white is simply tactical loss. So here in the continuation, as we said, maybe here instead of this move that Schooner now played, knight to f7, c3 would be maybe even a better possibility. At least my Stockfish engine at home shows that this should be the correct move here for white, because after the move c3, you could maybe try here the move bishop to g4 again, which seems to me always like the main threat here from black's perspective. But then the queen gets out always with the tempo. We can play queen to a4, and then at least the queen gets out with this tempo. The queen is not trapped anymore, and also the knight is hanging. So at least white has some kind of activity to improve the position of the queen. So as we said, here in the continuation, unfortunately for this engine Schooner, played simply knight to f7. We have now queen to e7 here by Lc0, and again d3. Again, in my opinion, this c3 move has to be played, because after bishop to g4, again queen to a4, you could maybe cover with the move b5, bishop to b5, and now okay, black can take out the knight, but still now also this black's king is in danger, because still we have opportunities to play bishop to c4. Even if you try here something like c takes d4, in my opinion, in one particular moment white will even have the ability to take, because now the bishop has to move here maybe to h4. But now with bishop to c4, maybe slightly improving the position with d3, then finally getting the bishop into the game, also getting the knight into the game. That should be actually the main goal now, to activate back the pieces and try to secure the king from white's perspective. At least, as I said, in this this particular position, for instance, the evaluation is +6 here for white. So as I said, d3 instead of the c3 was, I think, the main mistake now by this other engine Schooner. After move d3, here bishop to g4 play by Lc0. Now the queen has only one square, which is of course now the move here queen to d2. We have bishop to h4, finally securing the bishop. Lc0 has now one tactical idea in mind. Lc0 wants to get the queen somehow here on the f file. When that happens, then we have really some dangerous stuff here around the square f2, and even with knight to e2, we could always cut off the potential connection between the queen and the square f2. So that's actually the main tactical goal: queen to f6, and then something like knight to e2 in order to cut off, as we said, the connection by the queen here to the square f2. So here knight to c3. Schooner is trying finally to get some more pieces into the game, but now comes a great deflection motif here by Lc0. Here comes the move b5, and even if you take here, as we said, even if you take knight takes b5, we can simply play knight to e4. Knight to e4 is really brilliant, because after d takes e4, now comes this move queen to f6. You see, you have king to g1, but now you get knight to e2 and you lose the queen, because here you have to of course cover with the queen to e2, bishop to e2, but still nothing dramatically has changed, but because still this is the main issue here, the tactical problem around the square f2. So here maybe instead of this idea here after move b5, as we said here in the continuation, h3 was played by Schooner. You see, we cannot take knight takes b5, bishop to b5. This is simply not a possibility. Maybe here a better opportunity instead of this move h3 was to simply play knight takes e5 to get simply the knight somehow into the game, because the problem is now you cannot take queen to e5, then you get simply queen to e3, and it simply simplifies the game too much here, in my opinion, for black, because as we said, the main tactical threat is to sneak in somehow with the queen. Now with the move queen to e3, the queens are off the board, and I think in this particular scenario again white has solved all of the positional problems. So even if you try here something like knight to b5, we have seen also this particular continuation. Even if you try here something like b5, then we can still take out this knight. Then again, we should try somehow to maneuver the knight, maybe knight to d5, knight to e4, queen to f6, and similar ideas. Again, trying this dangerous stuff around the square f2. So as we said, h3 was now the next move by Schooner, maybe knight to e5, but who knows, really the tactics are all over the board. I couldn't really calculate everything. From that point on, the game becomes really wild. After move h3, here in the continuation, Lc0 plays bishop to h5. We have now bishop to b5. Again, I'm pointing out, even if you try knight to b5, again you get the same beautiful tactic: knight to e4, d takes e4, then queen to f6. You can maybe cover, but now knight to e2 is simply winning the game. So here in the continuation, bishop to b5 by Schooner, we have king to f7, again simply taking out the knight. Bishop to c4, king to g6, really beautiful square here for Lc0 to hide with the king. We have king to g1, and now here h6. Even if you try here g4 instead of this move king to g1, if you try maybe g4 to lock the bishop, it's not so good, because you get simply knight takes g4, h takes g4, and now again queen to f6. You have to play something like king to g1, but now you get knight to f3. Even if you try here king to g1, then queen to f3 is of course winning the game. Again, white is simply tactical. So that's why you see this move g4 is not working. It opens simply the position in front of white king too much. So that's why here king to g1 played by Schooner. Here Schooner simply secured the king on g1, but still it's a weird square, because the rook is not in the game. If the rook here would be on f1 or something, then it would be a perfect position of course for white. Then it would be sort of castling by hand, but so far with this setup here, it's of course not a good position here for Schooner. So here h6, Lc0 is trying also to get some breathing spaces for the king. King to h2, we have rook to f8, rook to e1. Finally to get Schooner is getting with this rook into the game, but it's a little bit too late, because we're not evaluating really this position, how many pieces on the how many pieces are on the board, because of course you see black has all the minor pieces on the board and has only one rook. On the other hand, white has 3 minor pieces and 2 rooks, and it seems so so of course that white is up the whole exchange, but it's actually not so, because this bishop is not playing, this rook is not playing. So when we evaluate the position, it's almost like Lila C0 has 2 extra pieces on the board. So that's why here it's a dominant position for black, because white cannot improve the bishop's activity. Still you need like one tempo b3, then bishop to b2, second tempo, then maybe to get somewhere with the rook into the game. So again, a third tempo. So really weird position. So with this move queen to d2, basically all of the pieces of whites got paralyzed, and black had then from that point on really a dominant position. So after move rook to e1, you see even Lila C0 doesn't want to take this rook, because this bishop is very important in my opinion. You don't want to give up such a powerful bishop for such a bad rook like this one on e1, because we want to sneak in, of course, on dark squares. There are always some tactical opportunities around the square g3, so that's why here Lila C0 didn't take. First secure the king to h7, we have rook to e3, and now a beautiful tactic, knight to g4, h takes g4, bishop to g4. Now we have a really very serious threat also of rook to f2, then also getting some tactical possibilities around the square g2. So here in the continuation we have king to g1, now queen to f6, building this powerful battery here on the f file. Again, I'm pointing out, look, this setup, the queen stands in the way, the bishop cannot move anywhere. When the bishop cannot move, then the rook cannot also cover this first rank. So really brilliant stuff here by Lila C0. After move queen to f6, we have knight to e4, we have queen to f1, king to h2, rook to f5. Now with the threat to play rook to h5, and then getting this h file somehow liberated and to deliver a checkmate. So that's why bishop to f7, covering the h5 square. We have rook takes f7, queen to b4, we have rook to f5, bishop to d2, and now Lila C0 takes another piece, queen takes a1, rook to e1, bishop takes e1, and now knight to c2, the fork on the bishop and the queen, knight to f6, rook to f6, queen to g4, knight to e1, queen to e2, and now Lila C0 gets the pieces back into the game, queen to f4, g3, here again queen to c1, king to h3, knight to f3, we have queen to g2, and now queen to e1, we have queen to c2, and now simply fixing the knight with the move e4. Now of course we want again to simply sneak in with the queen, or here also with this rook or on the queen here, simply getting an attack on the h file. So here queen to g2, we have rook to f4, we have queen to g1, knight to g1, here king to h2, rook to f2, here king to h1, and here after knight to f3, it was a beautiful checkmate. So really brutal stuff. You see how this Traxler Countergambit can be really wild. One inaccuracy and the game is over. So this is not something that I will try probably in the near future, maybe in some important games. This is sort of an opening, I think, that you were using simply in order to surprise your opponent, but still maybe it can be playable. You see the top engines are playing it too. As I said, Lila C0 is in the lead, which is in my opinion a slightly surprise. Recently it was a pure domination by Stockfish 14, but when it comes to the sharp and romantic opening, still Lila C0 is there, because Lila C0 has really a beautiful tactical improvement. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I enjoyed really a lot interesting ideas in the Traxler Countergambit. If you want to see some more sharp and brilliant games like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series, with some more games played by Alpha0, Lila 0, Stockfish 14, 13, and many more. And if you like this to see maybe some more human games, check out my best chess games of all time series with some great games from the past. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.